Damage is one of the most important features in just about any game. I mean, seriously, just think about it. Whether it be a video game where you can punch someone, or a board game where you just knock someone over and take their spot, at the end of the day, something is getting hit.
I hit a woman, and I'm having fun.
So, let's change that. Get that chessboard out of here, because today, we are going to try and beat Genshin Impact without getting hit. Here are the rules. We cannot take any damage. In this run, damage is anything that causes the left number to not be the same as the right number. But since I'm not perfect, I know, ladies, it's hard to believe, there is a very high chance that in this 50+ hour game, I might get hit at just some point. So, what will happen if that is the case? Then we make a new account and start again. No, that is a joke. I am not doing all of that just because I stepped on burning grass. In the event that I take damage, our reaction depends on where we are. If it's in the open world, I just have to go back to the most recent teleport waypoint I used and go back from there. If we get hit in a domain, then I just have to restart the domain. And to make things easier for you guys, this run will have a reset counter. Because spoilers, there's a lot of them. Now let's see if we can beat the sponsor of today's video without taking damage. Yay! Yes, this video is actually sponsored by Genshin Impact. You can download and play today using the link in the description. We start our journey similarly to most parents during the birth of their second child by picking our favorites. In the past, this decision would actually matter because of differences in either movement speed or attack speed, but for this challenge, we could really go either way. I ultimately chose Ether, and as for the name, I didn't really have a joke set up like the past runs. I was just listening to some music while recording this, so I was thinking Miku, ooey oo. After watching our sister fail this challenge, Lamau, it's back to the Gmail screen you go, we finally began our run. The first obstacle in our very, very long journey to come came after we received our Animo powers. Right after you commune with the Statue of the Seven, you are supposed to fight Pyro Slimes. However, we had to be extremely careful here. Pyro and Animo do have an elemental reaction together, but since we are touching this thing called grass, we don't need to do this. Because we've seen in the past that if you do this interaction here, we actually take damage. So we're going to get around this by using our skill at the furthest possible distance we can. 2 more ranged abilities later, and we successfully beat our first fight. If the fucking tutorial required us to use strategy, just imagine how the rest of this run is gonna go. The next character we obtained in this run was Amber, who was actually very helpful for this challenge for reasons that we'll get into later. But I'll let you in on one of those reasons early because I like you. But not in that way. Baka, I'm so sorry. This video is sponsored by Genshin Impact. Our next combat encounter had us fight 3 Hilly Churls. Normally this can be done in like 5 seconds by just using Amber Charge Attack into Animo Traveler, but I'm not using Animo Traveler in this run because he is a fire hazard, which means that we can just keep a respectable distance away from these guys and snipe them with Amber, aka the reason why she is helpful.
Get away from her!
With our second battle finished, we were now able to enter the city of Mondstadt. Inside the town, we obtained our wind glider and immediately fought Stormterror. This was by far the easiest part of the entire run, and the only reason I'm bringing it up here is to just let you know that the next time we have to do this, it was one of the worst things I've had to do in my life. With the first round finished, we unlocked wishes and started pulling for Noelle. Normally I go on standard banner for these non-character runs since there's more possibilities on that banner, but for this challenge, we need Noelle. I am allowing all types of shields in this run because remember the rules. As long as this number does not change, we are good. And it's also because I don't discriminate. The first domain in our challenge belonged to Amber, and this was probably the slowest anyone has ever done this domain, normally at least. First, we have to wait for all of the vines to burn, then it's time for combat. So, what's the strategy this time? Keep the high ground and keep shooting. They quite literally cannot hit us from up here. After that, we throw out Baron Bunny, run away as far as we can, and just keep shooting, which led to us completing our first domain. At this point, you're probably wondering, MistahFeet, you're so funny and attractive, but if you're gonna keep playing like this, then they're never gonna hit you, and this will be so boring. Well, joke's on you, because I agree playing like that is extremely boring, which is why these moments happened. 2 resets on the board already, and if you're wondering if there's a punishment for these, there's not. I'm sorry. This is already punishment enough, and you will understand why later. Our next domain is with Kaya, and for this part, I'm gonna use this section to make a clarification for the future of this run. When we have Noelle's shield up, we can still get affected by statuses like Pyro and Hydro, but that doesn't mean we take damage. So in the future, if you see a character with an elemental icon under their name, game, there is a very high chance that they just got hit by a move with Noelle shield up and I swapped. As for clearing this domain, I did this the way Genshin wanted me to by using Kaya and ice bridging. I am not taking any chances with these jumps. I have absolutely no confidence in myself.
No confidence.
Following more encounters with Dinjo slimes, yeah, that's what I thought, we made it to the final temple with Lisa, where yet again, we played the game the way they wanted me to. Also, here is rare footage of Lisa held skill. You don't see this every day, and you're not going to see much of it in this challenge again, because, girl, why are you just standing there? They can hit you! 50 minutes into this playthrough, and we are just now finished with the first act. And to celebrate, we are given a new character who will actually be the second most important character for this challenge, Lisa. But we'll talk more about her in a minute, because now we have to explore the world, which adds a whole nother layer to this challenge. Genshin Impact is a pretty easy game to take damage in, whether it be from enemy attacks, random projectiles, the weather, elemental reactions, the cutscenes, and plenty more. It feels like this game was designed with the intent of players losing health, and if you need proof of that, just look at how many characters can heal. So if we're doing a stupid, dumb, idiotic challenge like this, how are we going to possibly work around this? What can we do? There's two answers to this, playstyle and team comp. For the playstyle, we are going to have to become the noticer. We have to pay attention to everything going on. The weather can help us, but it can also hurt us. Oh, Jesus. Explosive barrels can help us, but they can also hurt us. So we have to destroy them early. Expect the unexpected. Oh my god, they come back. Oh my god, that scared me. We have to act like everything one-shots, so we have to play as far back as possible. And to do that, we actually have to think of what characters to choose. Through our grinding session, we obtained 4 characters: Dory, Sucrose, Bennett, and Geo Traveler. Yes, I'm counting Geo Traveler as a new character because Anemo Traveler is an active detriment to the team. Of these characters, Bennett was surprisingly the worst option. Bennett has great abilities, but they all suffer from the problem of being pyro and melee, which means that every time we use an ability on grass, we are going to take damage. And since Bennett isn't the most helpful in this run, that of course means I got him 2 more times. Dory is Dory, so I wasn't going to use her, which meant that we were down to 2. Our cast of characters now included Lisa, Amber, Noelle, Geo Traveler, and Sucrose. Each of these units provided some utility that would be extremely helpful for this challenge. Lisa, extremely far range and constant electro application, so we can always get reactions and not be anywhere close to the enemies. Amber, another character with far range, can apply pyro from a safe distance, and has Baron Bunny, which can distract enemies. Noelle, she has a shield, and that is it. This weapon is damn near useless. Geo Traveler has a short skill cooldown that applies Geo, which means that if combined with Lisa's attacks, we can get crystallized shields reliably and allow for Geo resonance, so our shields are stronger. And finally, Sucrose, who is able to group up enemies easily with her kit, and she's another catalyst character, which are the most helpful weapon types to have in this run, because in addition to the good range, these attacks can also go through walls. But you might have noticed that I only listed 5 characters, so you're probably thinking, MistahFeet, you're so funny and attractive, but this game only lets you use 4 characters, why do you have 5? And that's because we have labels for these guys. Lisa and Noelle are the main characters. They are going to be on the team no matter what. The other 3 are the side characters who have to earn their spot if they want to be the final member. There's only 1 spot left because I said, you know what, F it, we'll use Dory for Mondstadt, and Mondstadt only. I'm only doing this for you. Now that we've established our team comp and what our playstyle is like, let's briefly go through the Mondstadt story quest before we get back to the Archon quest. Lisa's story quest had us glide through lasers, which went fine for the first 2 traps, but the last one got us. So for the rematch, I had to become the noticer yet again and recognize the pattern so we could eventually cross. When it came to the enemies here, Electrocharge was able to clear them up pretty quickly. All we had to do was make sure we didn't step into the water. Amber's story quest was different. The first part of a domain makes us to a gliding minigame where we drop bombs onto hilly churls. This is problematic for 2 reasons. The first being that we don't have our dodge. When you dash in Genshin, you get iframes, which is one of the only reasons why this reset counter isn't at like 50 by now. But while gliding, we don't have that, and the hilly churls are constantly shooting at us. So we have to always be bobbing and weaving through these shots while also being directly above them to drop the bombs. The other reason this is problematic is because we can't be too close to the ground. If we're too close to the ground while we drop our bombs, the explosions will actually hurt us. And even though I did this on my first try, I'm telling you all this just because I want you to know that there were points in this run where I might make things look easy, but in reality, I had to plan this shit out for a while now. I've wanted to do this challenge for months, so most of my recent runs have just been giving me time and experience to come up with strategies to do these things. I thought the rest of Amber's domain went fine, but as I was fighting the archers, I saw that Lisa got hurt, which meant that I had to go all the way back to the beginning and do the gliding section all over again. Kaya and Xiangling's quest thankfully didn't give me any problems. Kaya's domain just had us fight slimes in a ruin guard, while Xiangling had us deal with icicles, which weren't too much of an issue in this area because of our Noelle shield. But our experience with icicles don't end here, sadly. They only get worse. So much worse. Almost 5 hours into this run, and with 11 resets to my name, we began Act 2, and I was feeling pretty good about myself, I'm not gonna lie. You know, 11 resets in only 5 hours. I mean, that's not bad. He might be the GOAT. I knew what was coming up, and I had ways to work around it. I have the Storm, ? We have Lisa, who can hit it no matter where it is. Fatui Hideout, ? All we have to do is full sprint at the start, then make the right dialogue options to avoid fighting. Fatui Agent, ? Literally, just get Noelle shield and let Diluc do his thing. Remember, Trial Diluc is a demon, but he's still nothing compared to my Diluc. This video is sponsored by Genshin Impact. Ruin Guard, ? We only have elemental characters and a shield bot. Of course, this isn't gonna hurt us. Who the fuck threw that Dendro slime? It better not have been Movomita. Brother's got a cannon on him. The final domain in Act 2 isn't getting the ? treatment because I actually failed here. That one Hydro Salamachurl just hit us with the water geyser. And of course, this is one of the final enemies in this area, so we had to restart the whole domain again. And this time with Dory, because I forgot to have her originally. Once we made it back up to the top, we immediately got our revenge on the Salamachurl and took down the remaining slimes and Pyromage to ultimately end Act 2. Act 3 started, and we were still doing pretty well. We cleared out all of the enemies without any resets, and it's crazy to think that we made it to AR20, played this game for 6 hours, and are nearly done with the first nation of the entire game only getting hit 13 times. So, what happens next? Dvalin. I have so much to say about Dvalin, and if you're interested in a little taste of what I have to think about this, you can check my Twitter, but I will not be able to share all of those comments and my moments of passion in this fight because this video is sponsored by Genshin Impact, so I'm going to do my best to not lose it here. All of my problems with Dvalin came from the first phase. Normally in my playthroughs, I don't show this part because 1, it's using the Traveler, and 2, it's not that important of an event for most of my challenges. But for this run, this is probably one of, if not the hardest things I've done in Genshin, period. This fight starts out with a 17-second cutscene. And yes, I timed it because every time I failed, I had to listen to Venti tell me to watch out for those blood spots.
After this, I'll do that. I'll do this, I'll do that, but I won't help you.
After the cutscene plays, we do about 40% of his health, and then we start the actual problem with this. In this section, there are 2 types of attacks Dvalin uses against us, blue and purple. The blue attacks are static. They go in a straight line, and they are pretty easy to dodge, but they can still be an issue. I've had to reset because I ran into an invisible wall, and I've also had to restart this fight because after I passed a wind checkpoint, one of the bullets spawned on me. But in general, these aren't the problem. The purples are the real pain in the ass. These attacks spawn randomly, and their attacks are also random. Sometimes I was able to dodge them, and other times I wasn't. I mentioned in the Amber section that gliding doesn't allow us to dodge, and boy was that present here. For the life of me, I could not dodge these attacks reliably for over 30 attempts. But I will save you the anguish of that here, because you can watch the rage montage coming later if you want to see me suffer. So now, I'll just explain what I did. After contemplating many of my life decisions, I eventually found a way to reliably dodge the first couple of purple attacks, which were my main issue. Once the blue attacks spawned, the purple ones were easier to deal with since I had more room to dodge them. But when the purple attacks start, the camera is zoomed in, so it's harder to see what's coming. I finally figured out the secret to beating them, which turned out to be using the camera. Our momentum when gliding is terrible, so we can't reliably strafe side to side to dodge them. But if we position our camera to look at like 1 to 2 on a clock, then move our character as the bullets come, we can just barely dodge them. Through numerous tests, I can confirm that this works basically every time. So now, we know how to get past the first 2 moves. As I said earlier, once the blue attacks start, it becomes more manageable. Every now and then, I still caught a stray, but the key here is to look out for the wind currents. We have to make it through 5 currents to reach Dvalin. So now, it's basically a matter of luck and skill. It's skill-based because you have to maneuver through the purple attacks and blue attacks while you can, but it's luck-based because the wind currents spawn randomly, and if you enter them at a bad time, it can lead to you immediately getting hit. The best advice I can give here is honestly just to do it, because that's what I had to do after the first couple of attacks. Believe it or not, but on my second phase of doing this, I actually got pretty far. I made it to the second phase, and since my second ever try of this went well, that meant every subsequent attempt I did after this, I did not make it far at all. 10 is the magic number here. If we can make it through 10 gates, then we can do this. After the first 5 gates, we damage him, then we get to the final phase, which also begins with the purple attacks that we now know how to dodge. And after 47 resets, 13 minutes of Venti telling me to watch out for those coagulated blood spots. Yes, I did the math. This is what happened. The top and bottom lip on my... Oh my god, you're not hearing the end of this. Oh my god.
My god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
As for the land phase, this was the complete opposite. I did this on the first try, since I actually have experience of trying to not take damage here. So there was nothing to worry about. We were finally free of Mondstadt. Oh my god. Mondstadt was complete after nearly 8 hours, and I'm not gonna lie, I went to bed after this. Goodbye, Dory. With the first nation done, I felt that it was time for me to fully decide on our team. And since we got a Barbara as a reward, she was going to be very helpful for us in the sense that now we won't have to go through all of my apples just to heal 12 damage. She's not staying on the team though. Our team is now Lisa, Sucrose, Noelle, and Amber for reasons that I've stated previously, but also because of Overload. Overload is one of the best things to happen in this run. Not only does this reaction do a lot of damage, but it also pushes enemies away from us if they manage to survive. It is literally the perfect reaction for us to have in this run. The next hour and a half of grinding was full of more resets for us and Razor's boss fight, which did take a little longer than I would have liked, and that's because Lisa does not do much damage with her normal attacks. But this is a sacrifice I will make over and over again if it means I don't have to get close to him. At 9.5 hours, we were finally ready to begin Liyue's Archon quest alongside Tian. After putting through the hell that was Dvalin, I was beginning to think that this challenge was not worth it, but after somehow finding a way through that, I knew that we could endure it. So watch me take my steps. My journey may be short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Because Baron Bunny got in our way, god damn! I'm being honest when I say this, you would be so surprised by how little this actually happened to me. Baron Bunny did not cause us too many resets in this run. Liyue was a much better experience than Mondstadt was, and Act 1 was a good indicator of that. To begin, we had to fight off the Millilith with our abilities, and aside from Baron Bunny, we didn't have any problems in terms of not taking damage. The cooldown reduction we get during this made life so much easier. It's like they were apologizing for Dvalin.
I can actually do a pretty good impression of you. I was practicing before the call.
Rex Lapis? Assassinated? At threat of dissension?
Why are you just sounding like Deku? Cloud Retainer was a domain where we greatly benefited from using our environment. This tree here allowed us to skip at least 4 fights, which means that at least 4 potential instances where we could have taken damage, and I don't want that. You saw how many times I had to restart Dvalin. I don't need to hear her say, one senses the presence of a sigil of permission more than once. I've already heard enough of the coagulated blood spots. 47 times. 47 times. The last section of Act 1 actually gave us a problem I've never had before. Xiao's quest needs us to make a satisfying salad, which I couldn't do because I wasted all of my apples during the Dvalin section. So I had to go apple picking in Genshin Impact in the Big 25. With our salad made, we then had to fight a Ruin Hunter, and this is where I started to feel better about using Lisa. Hot damn, those are some yellow bars. I love Overload now, and this is just the beginning. But for Act 1, this is the end. And for us to get to Arrow 25, we actually have to do some boss grinding right after getting my second Bennett. Grinding for bosses was an element that I had to heavily consider when selecting my characters, and since I'm using characters from the beginning of the game, we have bosses that are readily accessible to be fought, and ones that I have plenty of experience with. I had just farmed Animal Hypostasis with Jean, so Beth didn't give us any problems. As for Electro Hypostasis, those who know, know. This boss isn't hard for me at all since I have fought him from the very beginning. I have already spent hours fighting this boss before, so I know his moveset way too well. The Pyro Regicine is probably the most annoying boss for us to do. I will occasionally get hit by this enemy from certain moves, but there is always one move guaranteed that I get hit by, and that's this move where he, I don't know, and he starts spreading his fire. Whatever it is, it's working, and it causes me to reset. 69 resets, and hey guys, I think we can all agree that this is funny, so if you could put in the comments, like, make a timestamp for here and say this is the funniest part of the video, I think that'd be pretty cool. Following a couple of small hits, we were ready to begin the second act of Liyue. First up was the cooking pot, where Amber could heat up the rocks, and Lisa was also able to zap the hilly churls. So we haven't had any problems since entering Liyue, so let's ask Madam Ping to change that for us. Inside the teapot, there are a couple of things to look out for. First up are the spiders, and these things can really sneak up on you, so it is absolutely crucial that we use Amber to eliminate them from a distance. Then we have the group of electro slimes. The key here is to either not get close to them or use a shield and make them activate the mines. Electro slimes will occasionally have a pulse around them that does damage, so it's best to not get too close to them. As for the geo slime, Noelle can break their shields easily, and her claymore attacks knock them back, which can put them into the hole that instantly kills people. But from here on is where we start to get some problems. There's 3 slimes and a spider on the wall that we have to deal with, and immediately after that, there's like 8 slimes waiting for us. The one slime that's the issue though is the cryo one, because they have a move that traps us. This move has insane tracking, and it can even hit us all the way over here. How? He doesn't even know I exist at this point. I had to do this domain 5 times, and every time the cryo slime was the reason I had to reset. Every time without fail. So how did we beat him? With our bursts and luck. We hit him with everything we had, and thankfully our Noelle shield was still around to save us from the ice trap. By defeating all of the smaller slimes, we didn't have much of an issue taking on the cryo slime by itself. After that, we just had to defeat a group of treasure hoarders, and we were done with Act 2. For the grind up to Act 3, it was more of the same resets and boss fights we'd come to expect by now, but there were a couple noticeable moments.
No f***ing way.
One being Noelle Burst, which is going to save our ass multiple times in the future, and the second being Ascension Domains. The Ascension Domains in itself aren't too much of an issue, but what makes these a problem is what they represent. Ascension Domains are a bitter pill for us to swallow, since we have to accept the fact that our fights are going to become longer and more drawn out as the enemies get more health. And what better way to celebrate this pill than by doing some pulls? We got a Fontaine character, which are just beyond useless in these runs, but we also got a 5-star that we could use. But I didn't, since Amber wasn't our main DPS, and I wanted energy recharge for our burst. And because we get free Ascension materials for the Favonius Warbow all the way up until level 70 because of our Adventurer's Handbook, I figured there was just no real reason to use it, sadly. I promise you one day we will get a 5-star weapon that I can use in one of these challenges. Now that we've reached AR 28, we are nearly done with Liyue. The first 3 obstacles weren't bad for us at all. Sucrose activated the Animo Fan, Lisa zoned out all of the Millilith, and we were able to stealth past all of Fatui in the last area. So what comes next? The most obnoxious song you'll ever hear in your life. In reality, what came next was the Whopper Flowers, which didn't require much of a strategy aside from just spamming Overload, which seemed to do a pretty good job considering that one of the flowers just left because of it. I don't know, man. As we approach the end of Liyue, we come across the second major boss in the story, and I can thankfully say it was not as bad as Dvalin. Prior to entering the fight, I swapped out Sucrose for Miku since her swirls would not be nearly as helpful as a crystallized shield. The best defense is good defense. Overload is all we need for offense. Childe is not much of a threat for at least 2/3 of the fight. In the first phase, you can literally walk away from his moves. So long as we don't have the reaction time of an 80-year-old man, we'll be good. The second phase is the problematic one, mainly because Childe becomes much faster. His dashes, combined with the Electro Mark, make this battle more stressful than it should be.
All you do is run.
You're damn right, all I do is run. If we don't time our dash, we get hit, and if we don't play by the wall, the mark stays on us and we get nuked. Those were the main things I had to keep in mind with this fight, and luckily, I can say that I managed to get past this phase on my second try. 47 will not happen again. The final phase was similar to the first phase in terms of difficulty. He really doesn't have any moves to worry about here, aside from this one thrust, but as long as we're close to him, he's pretty reactable. The last fight in Act 3 was protecting the ballistas, which marks an important moment in this run. Since there is constant rain and we get a damage buff from Madam Ping, our Lisa doesn't really have a problem when it comes to clearing the enemies here, but unfortunately, we do have a can't in this challenge. When Osile decides to do his attack that Xiao is very familiar with, we have to take damage here. I used Noelle's shield and her burst to try and use iframes for this attack, but I think the game just makes us take damage here because they want Ganyu to be able to say she did something in this fight. That means this run's over, right? No. I know what you want. You want to see how Signora went. And don't worry, we'll get to that. But we've still got some time before we get to Inazuma. We ended Liyue after 17 hours and with 82 resets to our name, so the next quest for us to do was the Jade Chamber. This quest terrified me for 2 reasons. The first being the domain we had to enter. This wasn't one of them, by the way. The real reason is because this domain is long as hell. This is a 10-minute minimum domain that has constant fighting with the hardest enemies placed at the very end. So if we have to reset, that means we get to do the entire thing all over again. I knew what the stakes were heading into this, so I planned a strategy. After the rocks, we begin the first wave of enemies. What we have to do here is play on the outside of the circle. We have to play on the outside because the device in the center shoots out lasers periodically that damage us. So what we have to do here is attack the enemies from range and make them leave the circle. Once they are out of the ring, we just kill them with either Lisa or use Noelle's shield and spam with Trao Shinhe. After we defeat all the enemies, we shoot the device with Amber and move on. This is what we did for the first 2 floors, but the bottom area was what I was afraid of. We had to fight 2 Biggie Churls, 2 Hydro Slimes, a Geo Bishop, and 2 Ruin Guards, all in a small area. But I was able to work around this. On the edge of the circle is a layer of water, and with this, the enemies can get affected by the Hydro status, and since we can fight on the entranceway without losing the attention of the enemies, we can force them to go onto the water and get reactions for our Lisa. This method worked wonders for us, and combine it with the damage that our free Shinhe gives us, we managed to do this on our first try. I could not believe my eyes.
Oh my god, I can't believe my eyes.
Exactly. The other reason I was terrified of this quest was because of Bashed, but not really Bashed herself, but rather her cutscene. Because even though it looks good, this is 4 minutes long, so if I get hit here, I have to watch it all over again.
Whoops.
God damn. Is there a reliable way to beat Bashed without taking damage? Kinda. Just stay on the edge and wait for shields. That's really all I can tell you here, if I'm being honest. As for the 2 Dainsleif quests, I did have some resets here, but this is mainly just about knowing how to play around Abyss Mages. Lisa is able to deal with their shields from a distance, and as long as we're not standing on burning grass, they can't really do anything to us. At this point, the enemies would have to, like, secretly poison us in order to actually damage us. Okay, what the fuck? I don't know exactly what is damaging us here, but this is a forced moment because the game really wants you to leave the statue behind. You take damage almost instantly, and not even Noelle's shield can help with this. After 87 total hits in this run, we were ready to start our journey over to Inazuma. First up is a forced traveler section with the tournament, where our playstyle drastically changed in between fights. For the first battle, it was just full-on aggression, but the second half, we were very respectable towards Rongshi. They don't call him the Dark Horse for nothing. I couldn't tell you why they call him that, but you don't get nicknames for nothing. Following another reset at the hands of Gimmel, we were ready to leave for Inazuma, but this time around, I had to finally pick my team and settle on it. 3 characters were definitely staying on: Lisa, Noelle, and Amber, but someone had to leave. Who was going to stay with us? Sucrose or Geo Traveler? Only one could stay on the team, and for that decision, I had to think. And since I was thinking, that meant I could only be thinking Miku, ooh-wee, ooh. The main reason I felt Miku was the better fit here was because we had access to Crystallize, Geo Resonance, and just an easier way to level her up. What our comp needs is defense. And that sentiment was reinforced with our first battle at the beach. Crystallize actually saved us a couple of times, and had we not had Miku on the team, this probably would have turned out much worse for us. Finding Master Masakatsu in the prison was one of the domains I was not looking forward to. Basically, since the Jade Chamber quest, all of the domains we have to go through now are going to be fairly long, meaning we can't afford to mess up without having to go through like 5 minutes of combat all over again. This is where we see more use of Baron Bunny. The enemies are tankier, so they are surviving our overload dumps. 1 Amber charge shot means we get 2 overloads, but these large men are able to survive 4 of them. So having Baron Bunny out is crucial for us to survive these fights, and it's what ultimately led to us completing this on our first try. Prior to starting Act 2, we had to do both Ayaka and Yoimiya's story quest, and for both of these, I had a reset, which came as a result of Lisa, but I didn't record them. However, I do remember them. Lisa made electrocharged water over here, and for the Yoimiya quest, she did a plunge attack near the coast, so yeah, I mean, what more can we say? She's just a girl. Once we got to Act 2, the Shogun fight was the first thing we had to do, but I had this scouted. I knew that we actually don't have to do anything here.
We don't have to fight.
That
was weird.
All we have to do is run around for 2 minutes. Literally, just hide for 2 minutes and we will survive, which is exactly what happened. The journey over to General Goro was pretty different from normal, mainly because of Yashiori Island's constant thunderstorm. The area surrounding this river is actually extremely dangerous to us, which means that in order for us to get to the Statue of the Seven, we have to go all the way around, then glide across. Once we make it to the other side of the island, we do the archery demonstration with our Amber, then come across Kujo Sara's soldiers. This is an area where I probably got a world first. I made it past the first 2 soldiers just fine, but when it came to the last one, I got hit, which means that I am probably the first person to ever say, wow, I can't believe I didn't beat the soldiers here. And to even add further mockery, I can't teleport out of this quest. I had to go all the way back to the login in order to redo this. Act 3 was quite the jump in difficulty for this run, but it didn't start out this way. For the first couple of enemies, Lisa's reactions hard carried us here. And despite our Amber not having the best stats, she still did good damage to the Electro Biggie Churl, and Miku was able to finish him off without us taking any damage. However, once we got to the Delusion Factory, this run changes. As soon as I entered this domain, I knew that everything here was out for blood. Even the fucking ceiling. But we still had to find a strategy to do this. For the first room, the move was to kill the Boxer, Geochanter, and then Pyro Sniper. The Boxer doesn't have an elemental shield to protect them, and Overload can kill them quickly. As for the other two, we can destroy the Geo shield because of Noelle and Miku, and while we don't destroy the Pyro shields quickly per se, the Overload damage is still good enough to take them out pretty reliably. But the second room is where things really start to get difficult. We have to deal with the Pyro Sniper, Anima Boxer, and Electro Assistant Mage. These mages are very annoying for us because they teleport around a lot, they constantly summon bats, which messes up the targeting for Lisa, and they have Electro Resistance, which really hinders our damage as of now. My first plan was to just run at her with everything we had, but our tunnel vision led to us getting shot in the ass. And if you missed seeing me suffer through restarting cutscenes over and over again, you'll be pleased to know that although there isn't a cutscene for me to watch here, I did have to do a 2-minute walk every time just to get back there. During our next attempt at the second floor, I actually managed to get past the enemies. So for the rest of the domain, I used Noelle's shield to walk through all of the traps until we made it to the final room. The last group of enemies we had to face were a Hydro Gunner, Anima Boxer, Electro Hammer, Hydro Mirror Maiden, and a Pyro Sniper. I felt that the best option here was to play at a distance, but as you can very clearly see from this hitbox, that was not the case. So I had to walk my ass all the way back just for the same shit to happen again. This is going to be the Dvalin fight all over again. Do well in the second attempt, then every time after is a complete failure. The second area remained a problem for me consistently. So I figured the best solution for this was to just kill the Boxer and Pyro Sniper at the same time, which could be done with Overload since that does AoE damage. And as long as we have a shield up, that will protect us from the bats. With those two gone, we could just spam Electro Crystallize with Lisa and Miku, making her attacks effectively useless. Now that this room was clear, we were free to make our way over to the final area. This time, I was going to be more aggressive. Baron Bunny and Overload was our best chance here, and thankfully, it helped us kill the Gunner quickly. Shortly after the Boxer fell, and all we had left was the Electro Hammer. But I was going to use his Electro Shield to our advantage, and use this extra bit of health he had as a chance for us to farm our bursts, since I knew we had more enemies coming. Once the Hammer went down, it was time for the Mirror Maiden and Pyro Sniper. I went for the Mirror Maiden first, since she has more health, and she has this one move that's extremely dangerous to us. Remember the Ice Cage that the Cryo Slime has? Well, she basically has that again. The Pyro Sniper isn't that much of a big deal because all of his attacks are in a straight line, so as long as we have a line of sight on him, we will know where his shots are going. With our strategies working for all 4 waves of enemies, we finally cleared the Delusion Factory after 40 minutes and my hands going numb. The next obstacle in our path was the Shogun training, which I completely forgot about. And we honestly should have had a reset here, but Noelle's Burst remains one of the best things in this game because her iframes saved us here. Seriously, look how long this lasted. Next, we took on the Kujo clan, where I had to pump the brakes on our speed. I played this extremely safe because I was so scared and anxious for what was coming next. In fact, I was so worried that I accidentally skipped the Raiden Shogun voice line when doing this challenge.
After none can contend.
Yeah, it was that serious. So let's get to the fight that most of you were probably waiting for, Signora. This fight has a lot going against us. She has ranged attacks, she leaves marks on the ground that damage us, we have to keep in mind the weather or else we take damage, and much more. So, how the hell did we do this? On the first attempt, I knew for damn sure this was going to take some time to do, but I was going to use this time for research, and I made it to the end of her pyro phase phase, collecting enough data to where I could come up with a strategy. Going into this fight, I figured that the pyro phase was going to be the major issue, but no. The cryo phase? Oh my god. I mentioned earlier how I was going to come up with a strategy, but there was only one I could think of for the cryo phase, and that is save Noelle's shield for this icicle move. This is what I was talking about earlier. This move made me reset so many times, and it got me the 100th reset in this run. And if you couldn't tell from the box, I did not expect this to happen. This icicle move can basically only be dodged by Noelle's shield because it comes out so fast that I have to do a generational lock-in. As soon as she does this, they start flying. So I have this amount of time to swap to Noelle and shield. And even once we get past all the other bullshit in this room, we have to destroy the ice crystal. There is one strategy here. Noelle shield, Miku crystallize, and pray. We have to pray that we get good RNG on butterfly spawns and pray even harder that these random icicles don't drop on our head. It took me over 16 tries to get past the cryo phase alone, just because of how luck dependent this whole thing is. And the worst part is that even when I was close to getting past it, I had to reset because of the weather, since it goes through shields. But now we have the pyro phase, so what is this like? Believe it or not, it is not nearly as bad as the cryo one. I did have a couple of resets, but like I mentioned earlier, I did come up with a strategy for this phase. During my research, I noticed that Signora's close range attacks don't leave behind marks on the floor, but her range attacks and butterflies do. So the way we win this is actually by staying close to her, and the best way to do that is with Miku. I changed our Miku's build to be more of a main DPS because Signora's close range attacks are easy for me to dodge, and because we have Lisa readily available, she can also swap in, do a move, then we go back to Miku and get a crystallized shield to help. By having less marks on the ground, we don't have to worry about extra damage and the heat building up. And if we combine this with all of the notes and the Edge of Dawn playing in the background, we came up with this result.
You're in for a little shock. As a good night, cheers. Oh, wait! Come a little close.
Terra smash!
Come to me. No, you're coming to me. You're fighting me. Yes! Oh my god. Oh my god.
After 19 resets and a total of 16 minutes watching this cutscene, we were done with Signora. But now all we have left to do in Inazuma is
The almighty Raiden Shogun and the Muso no Hitotachi.
I still have the footage from old playthroughs. This fight was not the most annoying boss that we've had to do. During the first phase, we can get some good damage with Overload, ironically enough, but the second phase definitely had some troublesome moves. They weren't anything a Noelle shield couldn't fix, but the problem was that at those times, we didn't have Noelle shield, so it eventually just got to a point where it was luck-based.
No.
Only a couple of resets here and a 90-second cutscene that we had to deal with, but after fighting Signora, I was just ready to be done with Inazuma, which was exactly the case after 26 hours and 117 resets. And what better way to celebrate than by adjusting the reset box? Yeah, don't worry, it's not going to be like that the whole video. So if you made a comment like, that number outside the box is bothering me, then don't delete it because that actually helps the video. Just add a comment saying my bad. Thank you, gamers. As we make our way to the depths of the chasm, we join up with Dane to take on more abyssal enemies, where Overload continues to be the best thing that's ever happened to us in this run. Just look at how much damage we do. This comp's only real weakness is electro enemies. Look. Well, I say that electro enemies are a weakness, which was definitely the case pre-Signora, but now that I have a main DPS build and a fully leveled up prototype Rancor, Miku actually does fine on her own. And combined with an electro crystallized shield, it's hard for electro enemies to actually get hits on us. So about that. Yeah, and we actually have to watch Halfdan sacrifice himself. Again, this is yet another 90-second cutscene, but thankfully I only had to watch it one more time. As for the 4 Abyss Mages, I knew I had to be careful for this part because if you get hit once, you have to restart the entire gauntlet. This happened to me during the Goku Chasm, and I never forgot it. But for these battles, I swapped out Miku for Sucrose since the Animal Swirls could break the shields faster, and I figured that if we break the shields and stun the mages, we can easily kill them before they recover. This turned out to be exactly what happened, and that's how we beat the Chasm. Following a couple more boss fights and resets, we barely managed to clear the next Ascension domain, and finally we started Sumeru, which was quite an experience for me. The first combat encounter was in the Withering Zone, and one important thing to note here is that we did not take damage. The game just reduced our health pool, and if we go by the definition I said at the beginning, the left number is still the same as the right, so no, this does not count as taking damage. But don't worry, because I still had 3 resets here, 2 of which were from the branches that shot back at us, while another was because of Lisa's plunge attack. So what happened here was I dropped down with Lisa, and since the game went into a cutscene that uses the Traveler, he was standing next to the electrocharged water, which did in fact hurt Miku. Yeah, I have no words. She's just a girl. Nonetheless, I eventually got to the point where I could dodge the branches, and we cleared our way through the tree without any more issues. Towards the end of Act 1, we had to fight off against more Eremites, which was made only just slightly more difficult because I had to listen to the sound of glass being cleaned in my ear as I did this. As some of you guys are probably aware, Sumeru Act 2 doesn't add much to this challenge in terms of gameplay aside from this one combat section with treasure hoarders, so here's the experience me and my thumbnail artist had while going through the story. Minty, what are your thoughts on Act 2, Sumeru?
Is that the one where, like, Alhaitham gets his whole, like...
This video is sponsored by Genshin Impact.
Bro's fucking stupid. Boner.
Boner.
B-U... It's fucking bulge?
I don't know, try it.
Okay, that's
Bulge.
funny.
Bulge. Is it funnier than E-Fog?
Coffee, spelled backwards, is EFOC, which is funny.
That's one heck of an info dump.
It's one heck of an info dump.
I did not sound like that.
Insulting the whole chat, and this guy's actually, like, super fucking nice.
Voice crack? Oh, that's going in. Act 3 only had 2 fights for us to do, and while I did have a reset, the fights weren't too bad because I was able to use my strategy.
Bro's using his strategy.
God damn it, I was gonna make that meme in the video. No, they're gonna think I stole it from you. Act 4 did see us make a couple of more mistakes, one of which being my own fault because of Amber Burst. Her Ascension passive is quite literally the only reason this happened, and the other being because my fat ass got hit by the shockwave. Overload remained our saving grace for these fights, and once we cleared the mushrooms, we were able to use a collie I got from one of these wishes to do these pillars. The last bit of Act 4 that we had to do was the Pyramid Domain, which is composed entirely of fungi. What makes these enemies annoying is that they can fly and get away from the other enemies. This makes our overload less effective since we benefit from enemies staying grouped together. And despite us having to reset and do the entire thing again, Baron Bunny proved to be our best solution here since it made all the mushrooms force their attention onto one area. Act 5 of Sumeru on paper seems like it could be one of the most dangerous acts for us to do in this challenge, but for me, it actually went well. Up until Scaramouche, I only had 1 reset, and that was against a Pyro Sniper. I still have no idea how Miku took damage here since she was protected by a shield, but aside from that, we still clear the first 2 areas just fine. The factory is usually one of the harder domains for these challenges, given the sheer mass amount of enemies we have to go through, but we drastically reduced that number all the way down to just 3. A Hydro Gunner and 2 Electro Hammers. The only problem we had was dealing with the first 2 enemies in this small circle, but I knew that if we could just defeat the Gunner first and get into a 1v1 with the Hammer, we would not have any problems defeating it. As for the next Hammer, it was yet another 1v1, so again, no issues. We then made our way around this side of the building to activate the device, and as we knocked one last Pyro Sniper off the edge, we were set to perform a very crucial move, Jordan's signature shimmy. By gliding over here and using Geo Traveler rocks, we skipped over 5 enemies in a tight circle that could have easily damaged us and made us restart this entire thing. But because of our strategy, we didn't have to worry about that, and we could reach the next major roadblock in our path, Scaramouche. After a 2.5-minute cutscene, we made it to the first of Scarra's 3 phases in this fight. This was one part of the run that I was worried about, mainly because I don't know this phase very well. As you've seen in my previous videos, you cannot die here, so I usually just wait it out with one character, but although you can't die, that doesn't mean you can't take damage. So we had to actually fight here, and not just fight it normally, we had to do it perfectly. Similarly to Signora's fight, I knew the first attempt was not going to be the only attempt, so I used this as research for what to do. The first 2 moves he does are always electro attacks, and we will be safe from them as long as we stay at the back, then use Noelle Shield. Once we have Noelle Shield, we can pick up the energy crystals and activate these 2 circles. These electro circles are the most important ones to use, since if you activate 2 of them, it stuns Scarra. When he's stunned, this is our best opportunity to maximize our damage, but Lisa isn't our best option here. Since Scarra has very high electro resistance, Overload is okay, but it's not optimal. So this meant that Miku was going to be our best option yet again. So after getting a little more info about this run, we took some time away to do more rebuilding.
Debate club. Oh. Debate club. Oh. Debate club. Aw. Actually, Thrilling Tales, I changed my mind. Aw. I couldn't think of anything, sorry.
We ascended Noelle so her base defense stat would be higher, meaning her shield was tankier, and we also gave Miku 2-piece Archaic Petra for the Geo damage bonus. With this set, we maxed out all of her artifacts to ensure that she was doing as much damage as she possibly could at this point. Then we went for round 2. Our damage was a lot better now, and we were able to even dodge more of his attacks like the Anemo Hydro Hurricane. But as we got him to literally one hit away from dying, Miku's rock missed, and I dashed towards the left, which just so happened to have a fire mark on the ground, meaning we had to restart. We were so close to beating this, and I threw. I knew what had to be done, so I put on the Edge of Dawn again, but still, when we got him to a third of his health, we got hit again. It wasn't until I got the suggestion to change my lock-in music that we finally had the chance to beat this phase.
There we go.
This time, we were able to half health him in the first stun, and Noelle had the biggest clutch of the century here. Her iframes combined with the shield were able to save us from the ice and fire damage, meaning we actually had a chance to end this. Noelle shield. Okay. I got it. With the first phase done, surprisingly only after a couple of resets, the other two parts of this fight were not much of an issue. The second phase is just a waiting game. All we have to do is dodge for a minute and we are good. After that is a 4.5 minute cutscene, so I knew for a fact I had to lock in and turn the Persona music up. Just like the second phase, this is also similar to a waiting game, but we are able to speed it up by collecting the energy crystals and shooting it at them. The only thing I had to look out for was to save our Noelle shield for the turret phase, because they like to shoot at us immediately. With our Noelle shield up, I knew Amber could one-shot the turrets, leading us to a stunned Scaramouche. Now that we're on the platform, there was no doubt in my mind that this would be the end of the fight, since we had a trial version of Nahida and Lisa for those aggravate reactions. After Scara is the Polluted Islands, where I tried to do the Geo Miku skip that was used in the no healing video, but I actually messed it up here and nearly had to reset. But this kind of worked in our favor, because it led to two of the other wolves dropping down to chase us. If your friend jumped off a bridge, would you face that? But at least they're real ones. Didn't believe in magic until I saw my dogs turn into snakes, but it's nice to see that we still got a couple dogs here. Arr! The rest of this domain was more of what you'd expect at this point, with Overload and the shields carrying us through. We didn't have a reset here, but I wasn't too worried if I did, because I filled this domain with Goku and Sumeru, so I knew that if we had to restart it, then it would be at the beginning of this domain and not the 10-minute Scar fight again. With Act 5 finally finished, Act 6 was the last quest in our way. And despite all of the domains and Fatui we've had to deal with in Sumeru, a battle against slimes is what caused us to reset. Not the Cryo Abyss Lecter, nope, some random slimes. I wish I understood what was wrong with me, man. Sumeru ends after 37 hours and a total of 136 resets to our names, so as you can see, we've definitely started to slow back down on the resets since the end of Inazuma. Grinding towards Fontaine had us fight more bosses with only 2 more resets being added, and at 40 hours, we were able to begin the first act. After getting the Hydro Flowers with Barbara, I had to pass the upcoming skill check with Childe because I don't have my Noelle shield with me. The training wheels were off for this fight, but the GOAT was still able to pull this off after a couple of dodges and a bow stance burst. Act 2 is filled with more overload bombs and shields, but Act 4 is where things get a little more interesting. During the prison, we have to play as Fremine for a bit, and unlike my other attempts, I had to be careful here because these falls can actually hurt us even with a plunge attack, so we can't be jumping from that height. And again, I had to hit the brakes with this car up until we reached the water section. As Fremine examines the pipes, we find out that something is in the water. Unfortunately for Fremine though, this damages him. And since I'm an empath, if someone else feels pain, I feel it too. So that's another camp for us. The first 4 acts of Fontaine didn't have much for us in terms of combat, but Act 5 is where things get more intense. To begin, we get a warm welcome to the ruins with the Hilichurl rogues and ruin guards. Those who watched all of the no healing video may remember that this one particular room was the biggest problem in the entire run. So how were we going to do this here? The answer was Amber. Baron Bunny allowed the enemies to be grouped up and give us space in this very claustrophobic area. No offense to the Santa deniers out there.
Stop it, Patrick, you're scaring
Baron Bunny distracts them, and Amber's bow allows us to stun the Ruin Guard consistently. And since we're using our charge shots, we apply Pyro onto the Ruin Guard, which allows our Lisa to overload the enemies with good damage that hits everyone around them. By just playing around the edge of this room and timing our Noelle shields well, we surprisingly did this on the first try, redeeming our past mistakes. The next enemies also didn't cause us much issue, because at this point into the run, our game plan was well established. All we had to do was keep running the routes, and I was pretty happy with how this run was going so far, despite the numerous problems. Was I as happy as Farina here? No. But we were making our way through this nation without any reset so far, and next up was the major story boss. The whale was the story boss I had the least amount of worries going into, mainly because this fight isn't based on damage. In the story, all we have to do is hit the whale X amount of times, then we have to get to the next phase. Our damage in this first phase isn't relevant since we just have to build up his hungry meter. Once he's full, the baby girl needs to eat, then we fight the knight that's inside. This is basically the Shogun fight all over again, in the sense that all we have to do to win this is survive until he goes into his bubble. Noelle's shield and dodging is our best bet here, and combined with our range attacks, we quickly beat the boss of Fontaine without any issues. There is one last quest for Fontaine, which does have more combat for us, but we still did very well here. The first couple of enemies were Abyss Mages, and I did think of using Sucrose because of how well she did in the Chasm, but I figured that since there is more grass here, it would be safer to keep using Miku for crystallized shields, and Lisa works well against these elements, so Sucrose's services were no longer required. Say goodbye to her because Miku is here to stay, and she's not coming back. I'm telling you this right now. This domain here had us go through plenty of enemies, but our strategy still proved to be enough. We did nearly get a reset from the Crowd Lecter, but our GOAT Noelle burst continues to save our ass in the most crucial of moments. This burst is single-handedly the reason we cleared this domain on the first try, which means that we beat the entirety of Fontaine without any resets, but we still had one more nation left for this video, Natlan. Since this is the nation of war, one would think that this country would be pretty problematic for our run, and you would be right. To start Act 1, we lose access to our team, and we have to play as the duo of Kachina Lani. I was worried going into the section because I thought, man, we don't have access to our shields anymore, so we're gonna have to be a lot more careful here. As I completely forgot that Kachina and Mualani can make crystallized shields. For some reason in my mind, I didn't think Kachina was a Geo character. I thought she was just Kachina, so the idea of crystallizing completely left my mind. Now that I remember that there was only 7 elements in this game and not 8, Kachina's purpose now was hitting them once as we swapped to Mualani, who would instantly kill them. There was a reset here because of the soldier, so we had to do this again, and as we made it to the same guy, he has the fucking audacity to ask for our help, then immediately tries to attack us. What the fuck is wrong with you? Get dunked on, nerd. Following a 2-minute and 15-second cutscene, we enter the rest of the tournament with just Kachina. And since I listed the time of the cutscene, you can probably guess as to what happened here. The first enemy was not an issue at all since he's melee. We can just wait out his attacks and hit him as he's recovering from his moves. But the next enemy is the problem, Lalilo. What a pain in the ass. And it's only because of one move. The 2 biggest problems in this run combined into one move, her icicles. These icicles home in on us and are damn near impossible to dodge. I had to reset this fight 3 times, which doesn't seem that bad at first glance, but you have to remember, every time I have to watch this cutscene, every time I have to fight the Geo guy, and every time I have to watch this cutscene also. Well, she technically got hit, so. I am cutting out this footage for your sake. Just remember, I had to experience this. All because we took 400 damage in our nearly 20k health pool. I eventually just came to the conclusion that this move can't be dodged, so the best thing we can do is use the invincibility frames from our burst to save us. Thankfully, this worked, and we climbed the ice pillar to finally win the tournament. With Kachina's section done for now, we finally got our team back and continued our overload strategy down at the beach. Mualani's inclusion was also nice to have because this character is pretty broken, so as long as she has a shield on her, she is safe to crash into anybody she wants, and there's a good chance that they will die. As for the Abyssal Pylons, we instantly destroy their shields because of Amber Burst. Finally. I can't believe Amber is actually one of the best things to happen to this run. Even though Amber melts through these shields, that doesn't make this section entirely free. We still need to defeat the other enemies here before attacking it, so that way we don't end up getting hit while trying to break it. Thankfully, Mualani just drives into everybody, so Act 1 of Natlan could be finished. Sound like a car trying to start up? Act 2 has 2 areas of combat for us, the first of which really only needs us to pay attention to the fire. There's a lot of grass here, and we have to fight a Pyro Abyss Mage, so we just have to keep an eye out for where we're going. The second area was a domain where we did have a couple of resets.
Patrick, get off of me!
The first half of this domain isn't difficult per se, there's just a lot that we have to deal with. However, where this gets interesting is when we reach the halfway point, because we have to deal with the ghosts. Malco doesn't protect us with his shield until after at least 2 ghosts attack us, so we have to defend ourselves. Noelle's shield can't protect us from 2 attacks, and even if I used Miku burst, we still couldn't survive. So what did we do? We had to leave the area, farm our burst, and use that to help us. This did take a couple of tries, but luckily, the game uses this cutscene as a checkpoint, so we did not have to do the entire domain all over again. Act 3 only has 1 section of combat for us, but this was actually pretty tricky for me. These are just more matches against Fatui agents, but I kept making mistakes here. I messed up 5 times, and I had to watch Auroron bathe in the sun 5 fucking times until it finally hit me on what I had to do here. I was feeling good after the Fontaine section, but that led to me becoming hasty and impatient. I had to slow down if I wanted this to go well, so that's what I did. I dropped the pace all the way down for the next couple of fights because I knew we had to for the upcoming war. The war had a lot of things we needed to be careful about because enemies were getting tankier. More enemies were going to be present. There was going to be abyssal pylons that respawn enemies and burning grass. There's a lot of things to think about, and there were plenty of times that I messed up, but at the very least, whenever we had to reset, the game let us go straight back into the fight that we were just at. There's no need for me to go into detail about every fight because you know what we're doing by now. So at this point, it's just a matter of knowing when to execute it. This required us to be extremely vigilant and sneaky. Our soldiers were just Baron bunnies. So if we can leave the enemy's line of sights, we can do what needs to be done. Now granted, I am allowed at least 3 mistakes a year because I'm not perfect. So obviously I got hit like 17 times during this quest, but as long as we made it to Mawika, we were going to be safe. Yeah, kinda. Mawika makes the war much easier for Natlan, but she also makes it much harder for us in certain situations. Mawika drops these meteors that basically one-shot everything, but they leave behind fire on the ground. So we're gonna have to save our Noelle shields for these moments because if we don't, we're gonna end up just like the enemies we're fighting. Okay, Natlan, Act 5. Normally this quest isn't talked about in my videos because there's not much for me to say in the context of those challenges. But for this one, it's a lot. So get ready because we've got a lot to tackle.
Oh my god, bruh.
Act 5 consists of just 1 domain, and this domain definitely took some time to complete. I was nervous for a couple reasons heading into this. The first being that I knew I wasn't ready, and the second being that I had no idea if this domain had checkpoints. Could you imagine if I made it through the first 15 minutes of this domain, reached the boss, got hit, and had to restart the entire thing? Oh god. I was begging for that to not be the case, and for me to find out, we had to start this. The domain begins with us playing as Mawika, and truth be told, this is kind of free. She does a lot of damage and she can move around quickly, so there's nothing to really worry about here. The next section lets us use our actual team, and the enemies weren't too bad. Rift Towns can be annoying, but we had plenty of bodies to spare, so we could just let them take all the aggro and poke them from a distance. But after this fight, we actually have another cant here. Similar to the poison from the Dane quest earlier, this area makes us take damage even with our Noelle shield. But despite the cant, I did have to restart here because of the Mimic, which means I had to start all the way back with Mawika. No, that's it. We're putting on It's Going Down now. We had to lock in because I'm not spending another 10 minutes going through all of that again. There will never be another 47 again. The last enemy we had to fight with our team was pretty anticlimactic considering that this was their final battle as a group. Gunthra just stunned the Mimic, and that's kind of it. So ends the tale of Lisa, Amber, Noelle, and Miku. Because from this point on, Mawika only wants one person to help her, and who else could she possibly be thinking of? I'm thinking Miku, ooh, wee, ooh. Now that Miku is on her own, this domain becomes very different. The first thing we have to do is turn into Saurians. The Geosaurian is pretty easy for us to deal with. All we have to do is strafe left and right, and don't worry about the cut here. I was just watching Peter Griffin basketball. The Dendrosaurian was even easier. You literally just mash the E button. You don't even have to move forward. But then we get to the Hydrosaurian. Truth be told, if this section was just dodging the beams, this likely could be possible, but that's not the case. These circles that open up fire homing projectiles. They were here in the first boss, and they're here for the last one too. I'm so happy about this. Every time we reset here, it takes a full minute and 34 seconds to get back. So just keep that in mind as you're watching these attempts. I really tried for this section. I wanted to make this work I did, but there was just a lot going against us. We can barely move side to side. We cover up like half the lane. Jumping doesn't work against them. Dashing sometimes works against them because it can give you just a little bit of speed to move away from the bullets, but we don't get iframes from this dash, so it can still hit us. Like I said earlier, had this just been the laser lines, this could easily be done. However, I honestly think this is a can't because there is just no way to consistently dodge them. And if you think that it can be done, I would love to see it, but just keep in mind that this is what happens at the end of the road, so there's literally no point. But now we've made it to the arena. We have to fight the final boss for this run, Genshin. For this battle, I had no idea what to do since I've never needed to learn it. Pyro Traveler can heal themselves in this fight, we get 2 revives, and later when you get Mawika, she shreds through his health bar. So why would I have needed to learn this fight for the past challenges? Well, boy, do I hate past me now. There's a lot to talk about with this fight, so we'll just go through them as we go. First off is the fact that we had to get swapped to Pyro automatically. Now, there's no chance of me getting Crystallized Shield. The training wheels are off, the bike isn't even here anymore, we have to fucking walk. The best part about this fight, though, is that when we reset, it takes us right back here. We don't have to go back to Mawika, we don't have to go back to the Saurians, it's just right here against Genshin. There's plenty of moves that we have to look out for, but the main ones are the purple orbs, the shockwave, and the big slam. The purple orbs can be broken easily, but if they survive for long enough, they shoot out homing projectiles. However, if they get destroyed, we get a stun on him. The shockwave covers the entire arena, and although it looks like it can be jumped, it can't. We have to dash through them. Then there's the big slam he does. This move isn't hard to dodge, it's pretty easy actually, but it leaves behind fire on the ground, just like Signora. And when these happen, it makes the boss basically impossible to play against from range. So how do we get past the first phase? Genshin's first 2 attacks will always be a ranged one, and after the second attack, he will always do his purple orbs. We use our charge skill, then attack them one at a time and stun the boss. During this knockdown, we play close to him and get in as much damage as we can. Once the dragon recovers, we stay on his left side. This is very important. His left side is safe from the fire, and we can easily dodge his sword swings from here. The second swing used to get me a lot, but I discovered that if you listen for this audio cue, then dash, you will iframe it. The only move to look out for when you're playing this close to him is the shockwave, but as long as we can dodge 1 attack, we can break the elemental stagger threshold and pass the first phase. Oh, and this is a can't here because they make Miku get grabbed. With Miku being held hostage, we now have Mawika on our side to help us, which starts a whole new phase. And what better way to begin a phase than with another bullet hell move? It's Devalet all over again. So I'm sure no one's surprised, I got hit on my first time seeing this move, which meant we had to restart, and I was hoping and praying that this meant we wouldn't have to restart all the way from the beginning with Miku, as this loading screen haunted me.
Please, Mawika, Mawika there, Mawika there, Mawika.
Thank God!
Yes, yes, yes!
We were given a checkpoint in time to learn this fight. The first move is Bullet Hell, and it took me a while to fully understand this, but we did discover that this move is not RNG. These bullets have specific destinations, and there is a safe spot from them, which just so happens to be right underneath Genshin's belly. If we use Mawika's motorcycle, then immediately drive over to his belly, we will be safe. Now that's one move discovered, we have to find the secret of the rest of this phase. After Bullet Hell, the dragon cuts the arena in half and stays on the outside. The key here is to make him do his initial attack in front of him, then go to his side, because after he does his first damaging move, he keeps his attention in front of him, meaning it's safe to hit him from the side. This doesn't mean it's a guaranteed win though, because he still has moves that leaves marks on the ground, he'll jump out to attack us, and a whole lot more. It may seem like I'm simplifying this fight a lot, which is true, but you have to keep in mind that there's a lot I'm not showing you here. This took over 30 tries. Once we made it to the end of the second phase, the game makes us take damage again, and we reach the final section. For this part, we have to break 3 elemental barriers. This may sound easy, but it's actually very easy to mess this up, because if you take too long, Genshin does an attack that will damage you even after you've broken the barrier. Real-time cutscenes. So how do we do this in time? The answer was surprisingly simple. Traveler tap skill. Seriously, all we did was tap E once and just attack the barriers, which broke them faster than the attack could hit us. We did this 2 more times, hit Genshin with a blazing sword, and finally, after 30 total attempts, this is what happened.
There's always hope. There's no challenge too great.
Let's f***ing go!
Yay!
And what better way to celebrate this than with some offbeat dancing?
He's trying his best.
That's just slow down.
Hey, not bad. You're a natural.
You failed almost every frog.
Following the death of 2,155 warriors, we were finished with Act 5 of Natlan and done with this challenge. And after 60 hours, 3 minutes, and 37 seconds, we beat Genshin Impact without taking damage. Putting this on the tier list, this is probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to do in Genshin, and it's up there with one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Do not do this. I am not saying this because I thought you might want to. I am saying this so you never have to think about this again. Forget everything you know. This run was hell, truly. I wanted a challenge and I got that. This run will make you appreciate healing even more, and next time you take damage from grass, a random rock, or any random bullshit like that, just remember to thank your healers. But now, let's hand out some rewards. The quest that gave us the most resets was Mondstadt Act 3, and it was literally only because of Dvalin, 47 times. The quest that gave us the least resets was all of Fontaine, literally any of them work here. The biggest pain in my ass award goes to Dvalin, yeah, I made up another award just to f***ing spite him. And lastly, the coveted MVP award goes to Noelle. Honestly, I would have liked to give this award to all 4 of them because everyone had a role to play and they each performed it perfectly. But I have to think about all the times that we should have gotten reset, but didn't thanks to Noelle Burst and her shield. If I could give this imaginary award to all of them, that would have been great, but I just can't do it out of fairness. Thank you all for being a part of this journey with me. I really hope you enjoyed this video. On screen now is some fan art that you all have sent me, and if you would like to submit more, please send it to my email or Twitter. I would love to see it. This run was only made somewhat possible because of Noelle's shield, and I can guarantee you that for this next challenge, this character is also going to get carried by theirs.
And after 60 hours, 3 minutes, 37 seconds, 63 milliseconds, and 207 resets, we beat Genshin Impact without taking any damage. There you go. Thank you.